The Grand Archive of Zephyria hummed with the soft blue glow of quantum data streams, its crystalline walls containing the accumulated knowledge of 17 civilizations. Professor Kethavar adjusted his sensory tendrils as he addressed the assembled xenohistory students, their varied forms creating a rainbow of alien physiology in the lecture hall. Today, we examine the newly contacted species from Sol 3, Kethavar announced, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries of academic study. The humans, as they call themselves, have submitted their historical records for analysis. I confess, colleagues, I have rarely encountered such primitive documentation. A ripple of amused clicks and harmonic tones swept through the audience. The Zephyrians prided themselves on being the galaxy's premier historians, having cataloged the rise and fall of countless species. Their own civilization had achieved interstellar travel through diplomatic merger with 16 other races. A bloodless expansion spanning millennia. Observe their timeline, Kethavar continued, projecting holographic data into the center of the hall. They claim to have experienced 2 events they call world wars within a single century. The term alone demonstrates their linguistic inadequacy. Dr. Yathana, a crystalline being from the Harmony Collective, chimed in melodically. Surely they mean continental disputes, or perhaps regional resource conflicts. No species wages war across an entire planet. Precisely my assessment, Kethavar agreed. Their hyperbolic language reveals an immature understanding of conflict scale. The Tarkonian expansion, for instance, consumed 12 systems over 4,000 years, yet they modestly termed it the Great Reach. The students exchanged knowing looks. It was well-established academic protocol that primitive species often exaggerated their achievements. The humans were clearly no exception. Kethavar pulled up specific data points. They claim this First World War involved 32 nations and resulted in 20 million casualties. Obviously, they're conflating several smaller conflicts or perhaps including deaths from natural disasters. No single conflict could... His words died as his research assistant, Nexpol, burst into the chamber. The young Zephyrian's usually composed demeanor had cracked, his sensory tendrils writhing with agitation. Professor, the human delegation, they've requested to address your lecture. They say there are serious inaccuracies in our analysis. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. In 3,000 years of xenohistorical study, no species had ever challenged a Zephyrian academic assessment. How presumptuous, Dr. Yathana sang, her crystal form flickering with indignation. Send them away. But Kethavar's scientific curiosity overcame his wounded pride. No. Let them speak. This should prove illuminating. Minutes later, 3 humans entered the chamber. Unlike the graceful, ethereal forms of the assembled scholars, the humans moved with a strange, purposeful energy. Their leader, a female, with graying hair and steel-colored eyes, stepped forward. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, Director of Human Historical Archives, she said, her voice carrying an edge that made several students shift uncomfortably. We've reviewed your preliminary analysis. It's incomplete. Impossible, Kethavar replied stiffly. Our methodology has been refined over millennia. We have analyzed the records you provided. Dr. Chen smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. You analyzed the summary we prepared for first contact. You didn't ask for the complete archives. She gestured, and one of her companions activated a device. Suddenly, the lecture hall filled with images, photographs, videos, documents cascading through the air in a torrent of human history. World War I, Dr. Chen announced. July 28, 1914 to November 11, 1918. 4 years, 3 months, and 2 weeks of continuous global warfare. The assembled scholars watched in stunned silence as battle footage played before them. Trenches stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Artillery barrages that turned entire landscapes into moonscapes. Chemical weapons that reduced soldiers to choking, burning agony. 37 million casualties, Dr. Chen continued remorselessly. 9 million dead, 28 million wounded. 65 million total mobilized for combat across 6 continents. Professor Kethavar's tendrils had gone completely still. This is impossible. No species commits this level of resources to warfare. The economic strain alone would cripple any rational civilization, Dr. Chen agreed. But you haven't seen anything yet. The images shifted. Larger armies, deadlier weapons, entire cities reduced to ash. World War II, September 1st, 1939 to September 2nd, 1945. 6 years of warfare that made the first look like a minor skirmish. Dr. Yathana's harmonic tones had dissolved into discordant static. How many? 70 to 85 million. Dead. Civilian casualties exceeded military losses. We bombed our own cities to deny them to enemies. We invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds, then used them. The hall had fallen into absolute silence. Even the quantum data streams seemed to have muted their humming. We fought in deserts, jungles, across oceans, in the air and under the sea, Dr. Chen pressed on. We manufactured death on an industrial scale. We created killing grounds so efficient that we had to invent new words for the horror we unleashed upon ourselves. Kethavar found his voice. Why? What could possibly justify such devastation? Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly, taking on almost pitying quality. That's what you don't understand about humans, Professor. We don't wage war in spite of loving peace. We wage war because we love peace. We love it so much that we're willing to commit any atrocity, accept any sacrifice, endure any suffering to protect it for our children. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the scholars. You've built a beautiful civilization through diplomacy and patience. But what happens when diplomacy fails? What happens when patience is a luxury you can't afford? What happens when someone threatens everything you've built? The human looked around the hall, meeting alien gazes with steady resolve. You call us primitive. You mock our world wars as exaggeration. But I'll tell you what we learned from those wars. There is no force in this universe more dangerous than a human who has something to protect. And Professor, right now, Earth has 6 billion humans, and every single one of them has something to protect. Dr. Chen stepped back. We came here seeking knowledge and friendship, but never ever mistake our desire for peace as an inability to wage war. We've turned warfare into an art form, a science, and a religion all at once. Pray to whatever gods you worship that you never have to see what humans are truly capable of when we stop holding back. The humans left the lecture hall in silence, leaving behind a room full of scholars staring at images of humanity's darkest hours. And perhaps for the first time in their civilization's history, understanding that sometimes the most civilized species are the ones who have seen the depths of their own savagery and chosen to climb out. Professor Kethavar slowly dismissed his class, but the lesson had already been learned. The galaxy had just discovered that the seemingly primitive humans from Sol 3 weren't warriors despite their civilization. They were civilized because they were warriors. And somewhere in the depths of space, other species who had been watching humanity's first contact with mild curiosity began reconsidering their own aggressive expansion plans.